Hello and welcome to the Special Education Scheduling Helper. I'm Chantel. Thank you for checking out Chantel's Creations. The beginning of the year, creating schedules can be very stressful and very time consuming. I recommend that everybody have some type of format that works for them. This is one option, and you will have access to a template, and we'll walk through a sample and then give you the tools so that you can then use the template to create your own and input your own information. So never fear, scheduling can look scary and be daunting, but we're going to break it down. So let's get started. Okay, so what we are looking at here at first glance may look very overwhelming. Take a breath. We're going to break it down and make it all make sense. So it was created in Excel and then uploaded onto Google Sheets. So it could be edited from Google Sheets or it could be downloaded and then edited from Excel, whichever you prefer. I'm going to stay in Google Sheets for the purpose of this presentation. So across the top, we have times of the school day. So for example, if your school day started at 8:30 and ended at 3:45, and these are in 15-minute increments, that worked well in this setting. If you need shorter or longer increments, these are all editable. So if school didn't really start till 8:35, we would click here and then we could edit right in here. So whatever you need it to say, you would click in there and change it. Take it back to 8:30. Okay. Then down this column, we've got a variety of things. We're going to have a space for each of our paras, our SPED teacher, and then we break up by general education classroom or settings that we're going to be in and out, and then each student. Keep in mind confidentiality. I would recommend maybe using student initials or giving each student a number and then have that key elsewhere for staff to refer to know what student they're looking at. Just think through confidentiality and how you're going to do that, but there are two options. So for this sample, if para A needed to know where they were going to be, from 8:45 to 10, they are helping in the resource room, or the IR room. Then they're going to go and help these two students in this general education classroom. There are 3 identified students in this classroom, but this student does not have services on their IEP for this period. So while the para would still help, just like they would for any other general education student who is struggling, their main focus during this time is on these 2 students. Then around 11, that class is going to transition into a whole group language arts where all 3 students need that. Then at 12:15 to 1:05, that class goes to lunch. This para up here, it shows that, hey, that's their lunch break. And then they are helping again in the resource room. Then at 1:45, they drop down and they're in this general ed classroom helping these 2 students with math. Those students go to recess. They don't have services on their IEP during this time, so they are free. That any time where it says free, that means, it's a little break for them if they just need a break to catch up on something, use the restroom. If it becomes a longer chunk, then those free spots are great for checking in with the resource room, covering for maybe if somebody is out sick that day. You would let them know how you wanted them to use that time. And after that recess, this para A then goes back to this classroom and finishes the day with those 2 students. So that's how a para would read their schedule. They'd know what color they were and follow through. For the students, you could look through, we'll use this one now. So I know this student is in speech during this time. We don't need services. The speech path has that. They go to music and PE. They don't need services. This pink color signifies that they are in the resource room. I'll scroll down and show you the key in a moment. Then their class goes to library, and they don't need services. Then they have reading. They practice some typing on their writers, don't need services. Lunch doesn't need services. Reading in classroom doesn't need services. Then back to the resource room for math. Recess, computer lab, the rest of the day. Those students don't need services. So now I will scroll down and show you this key. So this pink in this example is the pull out to the resource room. Each para has a color, and gray indicates that SPED services are not needed. You can also just have things whited out like this. Like this would be occupational therapy, physical therapy. Yes. So on this page, by looking at this schedule that you would print off and it would all fit on one page, I will show you how to do that. You print, hit print, put it in landscape, and choose this fit page, and boom, I have a color-coded one-page document where I can see where every para is, where every student is. I can double check on the IEPs, make sure all the services are on there, make sure related services are on there, and this is a great way to be organized. All right, so down here at the bottom, we were looking at this sample elementary filled out schedule. What we want to do next is go to the sample elementary blank schedule. And it takes us here. Now here is where we edit and where we're going to walk through how to do that. So again, say you're looking at this and you want your school doesn't start till 8:45, so you don't need this column. To delete columns, you would go to Edit, delete column B, because that's where it was at and what we selected, and it's gone. Now it starts at 8:45. Or maybe your school day started sooner, so you want to insert a column. You would say Insert a column to the right or the left. In this example, we want the left, and then you'd be able to type in what you wanted it to say. So 8:30 to 8:45. And so you could just go through and edit those. If you didn't like it to be 15 minutes and you wanted it longer or shorter, you can go through, edit what these say, and delete or add columns as needed. Down here, you may want to put in your para's names. Something else you might want to consider is doing rotations to where you would say, okay, Miss So-and-so, this week you're para A, but next week you're going to follow schedule for para B, and get that embedded to help students not be so reliant on a specific para, and to help not burn out paras if they are working with a high intense student. But that is another topic for another day, but just something you might want to consider. So for here, we will say we have paras, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Jones, Miss Jolly, and Mrs. Apple. And then we have our SPED teacher. We'll use me, Miss Cox. Okay, so you can edit those there so that they match whatever you want them to say. If, in this example, there were 4 paras, maybe you have more than that. So you would go Insert a row below to make room for Mrs. Pencil. I'm not super creative at this moment. Okay, so we can add more paras if we have more paras that we want on here, or if we have less paras, edit delete that row, and that row is gone because you don't need it. Okay, so you would make this section fit your needs, and then for gen ed teachers, you would start Mrs. Mrs. Chalk. I don't know, maybe she's in room B10. And the students that she has, right now we're going to use fake initials, so A, B, C, D, and E, F. Here's our student initials for confidentiality, or again, you could use numbers and elsewhere have a key for staff to refer to know what number goes with what student. So we're going to pretend that Miss Chalk has given us her classroom schedule, and we have access to our students' IEPs, so we know what services are needed and we know what they are doing. So on Miss Chalk's schedule, she has told me that very first thing in the morning, her class goes to music and PE. So I'm going to highlight all of these cells that I want to merge together, and this little thing here, it says merge cells. When I push it, it makes all of those cells merge together to make one giant cell, and then I can type in music and PE. If I want it centered, I go here and make the alignment match what I want. If I want it bolded, I can do that. If I want it bigger, I can do that. If I want it smaller, I can do that too. So I can make the formatting however particular I want, and I don't typically mess too much with the formatting till I get all the information on to the screen, and then I can go back and make it pretty later, but that's how you would do that when you're ready for those steps. So they go to music PE, and then they come back and they have a big long chunk of their ELA time, English Language Arts. Then they're going to go to morning recess, and then when they come back, they're going to do some handwriting, and then they go to lunch, and then I don't know, they have another recess break, and then they go to the restroom. They do a whole class restroom break. I'm gonna briefen it to RR restroom, so I don't try and fit everything into the cells. Then when they get back, they're gonna do math. After whole group math, they're gonna do some math centers or rotations. Then they go to the computer lab. I'm just making this up to show how to do it. I don't have a schedule in front of me. Then when they get back, they are going to drop everything and read. They have some deer time. And then here they have their science, social studies. Maybe they rotate every other day, however that curriculum works in your building. And then here, maybe they pack up, PU, pack up. So what I did was I just went through and input exactly what the teacher told me her class is doing at what time. Now that it's all in there, I can select all of it and say I want them all centered, and I want them all 11 to make them fit. And recess isn't fitting, so I could make that a 10 or 9. So if I do 9, it fits. Or if I want it to maybe go up like that, then maybe I have more room to fit it. So it could be 11 and fit in a cell and go up and down. and I decide I like that, so I can hit Control C to copy, and then when I go here, Control V as in Victor does a paste. So I got the recesses to match. Dear time isn't fitting. Let's make it go up and down too. So there we go. So we've got just straight from the information that Miss Chalk gave us. Here's what those students' classroom is doing. Then when I'm looking at the student IEPs, I can go down and look at, there we go. Okay, scrolling down to the key. So if I click this, whatever color I want, and I go to this little paintbrush looking thing, it's a format painter. And so I'm stealing that color. It's like I'm dipping a paintbrush into this color and I'm going to take it up where I want it and use it. So this, if they were all 3 students during this whole chunk of time are going to the resource room, that's what that would look like. But maybe they don't all 3 do that. So I could unmerge by using my merge here. I can merge, unmerge. Maybe this student does come to the resource room, and this student is going to stay, and para A is going to help them in the inclusion classroom, and they're doing ELA also. And then maybe this student gets their initial instruction in the classroom with para support. But then they come down to the resource room for some intense reteach and maybe focusing on some phonics skills and some missing gaps that need to be filled. So these can look any way you need them to look. You just use the merge and the colors and make it fit your needs. Maybe at recess, none of them need any assistance. So we're going to take that up to here. Oh, so that might happen sometimes. So I formatted it before I put the color. Then when I went down and stole the formatting from the color, it went back to normal. So again, I want it to go straight up and down, and we're good to go. So maybe you don't want to do any of your text formatting till you have all your coloring done. That could work. So if during this time, let me get it gray here. Okay, so during this music PE time, Mrs. Smith, para A, is not needed in the classroom. So we want her, we're going to go down, get our color, bring it up here. So from here, and I can merge and connect these two, I want her in the resource room, or in the district I'm in, we call it the IR room for interrelated. Some call it IS, Instructional Supports, just whatever you guys call it, just know, I mean, you could even put Miss Cox's room or whatever. So just a way to communicate that that's going to be pull out. She's helping in that room. So she would be able to look at her schedule and say, okay, I know I'm here and then I'm here. We would not want her double booked anywhere. That's something we would check for when we were done as we go through and fill out the rest of the general ed schedules. At the end, you want to double check and make sure nobody is double booked and everybody is accounted for at all times. The other thing, I'm going to go back to this filled out one. Make sure you schedule yourself a plan and a lunch, especially in the elementary. I mean, this is crazy chaos. You don't ever not have kids in your room. Pick a time when you have a small amount of kids and someone else in there to help you, and they can be working with these kids on some reteach skill building activities. You do not have to do everything all the time by yourself. So try to get those in as much as you can. You cannot control behaviors and IEP meetings scheduled and all that, so you will lose your plan and or lunch frequently, but at least have it on paper and your paras can help you protect that time as well. Um, so keep that in mind as something important. Another thing, on here, it's showing these classes have library. Well, maybe they only have library on Monday, not every day. So what could we do? I'm going to copy this over to here so we can kind of mess around with it. Okay, so maybe on Monday they have library. So you could put Monday in parentheses, but then all the other days, this is their science social studies time. So you can indicate if it's different, and then you could also color. So maybe they don't need help in library, but they need help every other day for science social studies, and you want para B to be in there with them during that time. I would color it because for the most part, that's where you want her. And then up here, during this chunk of time, you could say Monday free or something like that to indicate that she's free. So on Mondays, or sorry, Mr. Jones, he's free. And so on Mondays, he could fill in if somebody was absent. He could cover during that chunk of time. Or maybe you've got some intense kids that need extra support in the IS room 1 day a week. You can decide how you want to use them on Monday. But that way he knows for the most part he's going to be there, but on Mondays he's not needed. Maybe he is needed during library for one of our kiddos, so then you wouldn't have to worry about that. But I want to unmerge, and then notice when I unmerged, my lovely lines went away. If you highlight the cells you want, then here you can click how you want your borders and do that. Trying to think if there's anything else that makes this challenging as you go through. Say you don't have this many students or this many places, again, you can select a row or multiple rows, however many rows, and edit, delete those rows. They'll go away if you don't need them when you're doing initial setup. Or if you need more, insert, decide if you want row above or below, and input what you want to do. Something you might want to consider, first I'm going to do copy these in the order. So this was para A, B, C, D. So down here, I want that to match. So there we go. So they would match, but something else you could do, oops, I want to copy all 4 of these, control copy. Up here, if this time isn't really being used, you could go ahead and just have an easy to grab, so you don't have to go down to the key to do your format painter. It would all be kind of right here. So just a thought to kind of maybe have a little bit of a key up here. So as you're working on this, it can get a little frustrating when you're learning a new program and doing all these little details. Just be easy on yourself. Contact me through my email. Ask questions. I'd be happy to help in any way that I can. It is just a great tool. I've helped many teachers figure it out and go through it, and while they're figuring it out, it's frustrating, and then once it's done, they're so thankful that they took the time and did it. And then as small changes happen throughout the year, it's very easy to update and tweak. Um, when they say, hey, I don't think I have enough para support, they can very easily show, I made it all bright red, all the areas that still need coverage, and I can show that all my pairs are being used. So let's show example here. So in this filled out example, every pair is being used every moment of the day except for these free times. All services are covered. We're good to go. Say we get a move-in student in, let's find a chunk of time, this class, and he absolutely has to have IEP support during that chunk of time. We can go to make it bright red, and then maybe, yeah. So here, I mean, we had some good times with IR room coverage. That would be kind of the first to go to cover here, but in this 30-minute block, you would be able to show that you can't meet the needs there. But if you went through and made everything a different color, such as bright red, you could easily show whoever you needed to show to prove that you do indeed need additional staff support. So it's also very helpful if needing to do that. I do want to show you so if you add a new para, maybe you have more than 4, and so insert row below. We have Mrs. I think I said Chalk earlier as an example. Well, Miss Apple and Miss Chalk can't have the same color. That's too confusing. So in the key here, this little fill color, this paint bucket looking thing, click on that and pick a new color. So then you would have a purple. So you can pick and add as many colors. I have used this format, this template, to schedule and up to 13 paras at one time in a program. And so every para, myself, my co-teacher, the social worker, everybody had a color. We had 15 or 16 different colors. So it can be done. Our key was just long, and we ended up moving this way so it didn't just make my page longer and longer. But you can do all kinds of custom colors on this scale. So you can have different shades and darknesses of purple or blue, and just kind of get creative with the coloring there. So number of staff does not negate the template. Also, I've seen where upper schools, middle schools, high schools have used this template, but they need fewer of these. Maybe they would get rid of a bunch of these and they just need 7 bigger blocks. Let me do that real quick. I can duplicate this tab. So here's my copy. So maybe they don't need, they only need the first 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they can delete all of these. Edit, delete all those columns, and now you can make these bigger and mess with the formatting however you want. And this could be hour 1 or period 1 or whatever you call it, hour 2, hour 3, and go through, and just like we did before, you'd have locations, students, and start filling in where pairs need to be, what services need to be on there. So if I get rid of all this, so reset all those colors, I'm gonna get these all unmerged and just getting this back to basic here. So for example, our 1, 2, and 3, at the high school, we also have a Miss Chalk in room B10, and she's got 3 students. And so Miss Smith is going to be helping these 2, and this is maybe Miss Chalk ELA in room B10. And so we've got 3 identified students in there that need supports, and Miss Smith is going to cover them. And you could merge and make it pretty and say ELA or whatever you want to say. But you could fill it in like that as well to make it fit. And then if you have more space and you want these to go this way and you want them centered and you want it bigger and bold, you can play with it and make it as pretty as you want. But easy way to get all the information, everything you need on there. Okay, so again, as you're working on this, if you hit any roadblocks, please email me or comment on however you got this, whether it's on my blog or my Teacher Pay Teacher store. Just contact me and I would be happy to help in any way.